So welcome everybody to the webinar today. This is presented by SBRN. This is the Fraud Prevention for Small Business Owners. Thank you for joining us. My name is Allie Stevens with the Florida SBDC at UNF. We are a statewide network, and our mission is to help small businesses start, grow, and succeed. And we do this by offering consulting and training like today. Quick little housekeeping. There's going to be a survey sent out after the webinar today, so be on the lookout for that. And then also this is being recorded, so you will have access to the recording once that is made available later this afternoon. And I'm going to hand it over to Nancy Boyle, the director of the Small Business Resource Network, who's presenting this webinar today. Nancy?
Thank you, Allie. Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. And this is the first in a series of webinars that the Small Business Resource Network program members are going to be presenting. So just to give you a quick overview of what SBRN is, it is a network of professional service providers, accountants, business attorneys, commercial lenders, commercial insurance agents, business consultants, a variety of nonprofit and government entities, and some select professional organizations who provide services to the small business community. All members are vetted before they're approved for membership. So they come from a background of experience and expertise, and in most cases have sometimes a couple of decades of experience that they bring to the table. So our first webinar is Fraud Prevention for Business Owners. And our speaker today is Genevieve Napier-Cart. And Genevieve is the Vice President in Financial Services. Can't talk today, sorry, Jen. Vice President, Financial Sales Manager with First Citizens Bank. Genevieve has over 28 years of experience in the financial services industry. She has been with First Citizens since 2014. So she has an extensive background in commercial lending and all aspects of financial services. She's a member in good standing, of course, of the Small Business Resource Network, as well as involved in a number of community efforts. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the program over to Genevieve Napier-Cart. So,
thank you, Nancy. Here at First Citizens Bank, we like to be a resource to our small business community, and we strive to work with locally owned businesses, just like many of yours. So today, we thought the fraud prevention presentation opportunity was a great time to share some facts that may be unknown. So we'll get started here, and any questions, we'll have time at the end. So thank you so much for your participation today. So first, in an increasingly digital world, we're trying to recreate in-person recognition across industries and channels to fuel growth and opportunities. In doing this, we need to carefully balance customer security and convenience with fraud and friction. Being able to verify someone shouldn't disrupt the way they interact with a business. Any business that can better identify its customers can more easily spot fraud. Excuse me. With most consumers owning smartphones and mobile devices, 91% followed closely by laptop users. As you can see here, 83%. The digital marketplace is here and now. Certainly, technology is supporting the large volume of online interaction between businesses and consumers. But the real currency of digital commerce is trust. Online activities amongst consumers reflect widespread embrace of digital commerce as a way to purchase goods and services and conduct banking activities. As businesses undergo digital transformations in their front and back office operations, they recognize the importance of trust and the need for technology to enable it. When it comes to online engagement, 3/4 of businesses are interested in more advanced security measures and authentication processes that have little or no impact on the customer. At the same time, businesses understand that their customers take comfort in those security measures that they already have in place for digital transactions. The enthusiastic embrace by consumers of the digital marketplace is predicated on trust. 4 out of 5 consumers trust that businesses are making the protection of their personal information a top priority. In contrast, almost 3/4 of businesses cite fraud as a growing concern over the past 12 months, and nearly 2/3 of those report the same or higher levels of fraudulent losses over that time period. Nonetheless, consumers are feeling reassured. They cite visual signs of security and barriers they encounter when assessing their online accounts as indicators that a transaction is more secure. In fact, the lack of visible security was the #1 reason customers abandoned a transaction. Solutions that combine device information with other data points, such as biometrics, could help businesses in the future better recognize their customers rather than challenging them. Why has fraud become so pervasive, and why have businesses struggled to keep up? The great irony is that the weapon against online fraud is also the source of its vulnerability. The existing account setup process requires consumers to provide extensive personal information, answers to secret questions, and passwords. Data breaches have exposed this information to fraudsters. Once stolen, this information can be used to facilitate fraudulent activity, giving personal information genuine valid in illicit markets. As the potential windfall from digital fraud grows, so does the cyber criminals' motivation to stay ahead of those latest detection strategies and technologies. What do you do when you don't know what to do? Call me, call your banker. We'll help you. How to protect your business from fraud. There are common schemes out there, and these are some of them. In banking, altered checks. This occurs when a check has already been issued, but data fields on the check are changed to reflect alternative fraudulent amounts and payee names. Counterfeit checks. These are advances in software application, and printers have given fraudsters a way to create imitation checks if they have that company's bank account information. Forgeries. These often involve stolen checks. Forgeries occur when there's an unauthorized signature from the payer or the endorsement from the payee. Electronic payments are other areas where fraud can occur. Understanding the rules is what's most important. A business is not protected the way consumers are. Basically, with your business account, you have less than 24 hours to report fraud on the account. We recommend you monitor your account daily, review those account transactions every day. As soon as you see something, call your banker. Also, talk with your insurance agent. Does your policy cover losses from payment fraud? This is a good fun fact just to see if your insurance does cover. Tap into bank services. We've got several ways here at First Citizens Bank to protect our clients from payment fraud. First is ACH Monitor. This is a feature that protects your account from automatic clearinghouse transactions. You can have a filter or a total block. or just monitor those transactions. Positive pay and reverse positive pay are protections that go into the actual checks and the information on the checks as you input it into the system. So ACH Monitor, as you can see here, helps business clients protect their accounts against the electronic fraud by blocking and or returning any transactions not authorized by the business. Positive pay and reverse positive pay is a fraud protection service that helps detect and stop the check fraud. Again, designed for the business clients and allows them to review and return unauthorized checks. Fraud protection, features and benefits. There's daily cutoff times. There are manual entries available, but there's also entries that you can have on a decision basis that will occur automatically, meaning you can have it set up if you do not make that manual decision by a certain time, those items can automatically return or pay based on how you've set that default up. ACH Monitor, again, you can choose to block all or filter, meaning allow certain transactions or submitters to be authorized. You can also change those authorizations. Positive pay can be a manual entry, which is available on our business online banking. There's no software required. All of these are available through our digital banking services. Email alerts are sent, and those are updated multiple times to the designee that you select. I had a couple of videos, and unfortunately we weren't able to hear the sound on them. So I would ask at this time if there are any questions.
And if you guys would type your questions in the questions section, we'll go to answer them. Genevieve, can you, while we're waiting on questions to come in, can you kind of walk us through, I mean, I know you said you have 24 hours for the business to report any fraud, and you know it's a good idea to monitor it daily, but so let's say I have a business and I'm doing that, and I notice that something is showing up as a payment out of my account and I don't recognize it. So I'm sort of walking through the steps myself here. So, you know, help me to be clear on this. So I call my banker and I say, hey, I've noticed in my bank account that there appears to be a charge that I don't recognize. So will the bank explore that? Will they do the search it out and find out where it came from, or will they flag it, or how does that work?
What we can do is get any information on that person, that business that has tried to take monies or has taken monies out of the account. And so then we can provide that phone number and any type of tracing information to the business owner to then say, oh, yes, I forgot I gave, you know, let's say AT&T, for example, permission to debit our account for the phone systems. And, you know, oftentimes it is perhaps something that someone forgot that they had provided their information to. Other times it is absolutely fraudulent information, and then the client has to start a dispute, and there are no guarantees. If the bank can't get the money back, then that business owner can be potentially out those dollars. So business, it is in the business's best interest to have some type of fraud protection on their accounts.
So now, would it make sense for the business owner? I know when I do my personal banking online, I go into bill pay and I set up the bills that I want to pay. Would it make sense for the business owner to do that concept of setting up the payments, even if they're automatic payments that go out on the first of the month or regularly, where they're initiating the payment versus allowing the outside entity to come into their bank to get that payment?
Unfortunately, unless there is such a thing as ACH block or the positive pay, reverse positive pay, your account is not blocked from anyone outside having your bank information and making a fraudulent check, making a fraudulent withdrawal attempt. There is no protection unless you've got one of these products on your account.
Okay.
So doing bill pay, it's a way that you as the business owner are controlling that payment, as in sending it out, but it still does not protect the account because your account information is still exposed, let's say.
Okay. Now let's say the person in the accounting department discovers that some checks are missing out of their checkbook. Maybe they still are old-fashioned way and pay by writing a check. If they call the bank and notify them of these missing check numbers, does that block those checks from getting paid?
Excellent question, Nancy. Yes, what the bank would do at that point in time is advise the client whether any of those numbers have cleared. If they have not cleared, we would recommend either to go ahead and place a stop payment on those particular items, but more importantly and safely, we would recommend that the client go ahead and close the account and open a new one.
Okay. We have a question here. What is reverse positive pay? I suppose we should give an explanation of what is positive pay as well as what is reverse positive pay.
So positive pay is a systematic, it's a systematic matching up of when you write a check and it goes into, let's say, QuickBooks, for example. You record it in QuickBooks, that file uploads to the bank at night that you've issued these checks. So then when a check comes through the system and you have positive pay on your account, we're going to match up the check number and the payee and the dollar amount. It matches, we go ahead and send it through the system and pay that item. So it's an automated way of paying your checks with that upload at night through our online banking system. Okay. If there is a check that is presented through the bank that has not been uploaded, it will send you an email with an exception asking you, would you like us to pay this check or would you like it to be returned? So in the event that, oops, I forgot to input that into my system and upload it, you still have the option to have it paid versus have it automatically returned.
Okay, so is that what we would call reverse positive pay?
Reverse positive pay is similar, but it is the, forgive me.
That's okay.
It is the process that it's manually, oh dear, I'm blank on that. I'm so sorry. So it's more of a manual process, the reverse positive pay is, and I will get some information out to you. These videos really disappoint me, they wouldn't play.
Well, that's okay. So let's say I'm starting a business and I come to you and I'm ready to open my account. What tips would you give me so that when I'm setting up my account initially for my business, that some of these fraud mitigation, what's the word I'm looking for, things are in effect? Does that make sense? I know I'm not asking it probably properly.
What I would do is I would mention to folks with a business account to first check to see what type of protection you have against fraud with insurances that you have. Secondly, I would inform the client with a business account, unlike a consumer, there is not fraud protection automatically. And then I would go into explain why that is and the different fraudulent protections that are available.
Okay. So it doesn't look like we have any more questions. Can you maybe share some tips on, I mean, even beyond what the bank can do, but maybe just from your experience, some tips that business owners need to think about, like, I guess, even something as basic as locking up your checks at night. So if somebody comes in after hours, they can't just pull checks out of your checkbook. But things along those lines, do you have any suggestions for the folks in our audience? Just it's always better to add more precautions on the front end than to try and get restitution on the back end.
Absolutely. That's a great point, Nancy. It is always recommended to keep your check stock under security, whether that's locked in a drawer, knowing who has access and limiting the access to those items. Oftentimes, and it's unfortunate in small businesses, and even as we've heard on the news in large businesses, somebody's personal situation changes, and unfortunately they find a checkbook and they find a way to make it okay in their mind to take advantage. And so having certain items limited access is very important. You want to, again, just keep those items really under lock and key. Do not share online banking login. Do not share any of those passwords. And again, limit who has the ability to sign on behalf of the accounts.
Do you recommend that businesses require 2 signatures on an account?
That's an interesting question, because oftentimes you'll see where checks say 2 signers required, and that is absolutely allowed as far as having that information on the check, but that is not something that the banks can regulate and mandate. So that's more for a business's secure feature, is to say 2 signatures required on that check. But again, it's not regulated by the banking industry.
Okay. Can you think of any other little nuggets to share?
I do have, going back to reverse positive pay for just a moment, the reverse positive pay is all of the checks are considered exception items, and you review and decision each of them. Not good if you write a lot of checks. Positive pay provides the mismatched, that's the one that automatically uploads. It provides the mismatched items as exceptions and sends you an email. But the reverse positive pay sends you an email for all checks that clear.
So, all right, so let me get back to, I have my business and I use QuickBooks. So I would have to sign up with the bank for the positive pay program first. And then every day, or how often I write checks, I just upload that to the system, and then the system matches the payments and goes ahead and pays them, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Yep. It is that easy. There's a feature in your QuickBooks that will, you can click it to notify and send the bank that positive pay information, so that they can then match it automatically for the, for the business owner automatically.
Okay. All right, I'm going to give a last call for questions. If anybody has any questions. Actually, I'm kind of curious, how many of you in the audience are business owners?
If you could type it into the question section.
Yeah, just type in yes in the question section, and we'll get a sense of whether you are in a position to already have. All right, we got a yes there from Jamie. I know Heyman is one of our SBDC folks, so oh, maybe we only have one. Okay. Now, you know what? If all we have is one of our attendees is a business owner, then if you don't mind, Jennifer, let's do a little quick take on as a consumer fraud prevention. I mean, the same would apply. Keep your checks, you know, out of somebody else's hands. If you happen to be a lady with a purse and you're in the grocery store, you know, pile something on top of your purse so somebody can't steal your wallet or your checkbook. But as a consumer, if I detect fraud in my personal account, what am I obligated for, or what is the process?
Oh gosh, the nice thing for consumers is you've got fraud protection, and that's a regulation that's out there by the Federal Reserve. And what that says is if you've got a check that came through your account and it was fraudulent, you are able to dispute that item. Same thing with a debit card transaction. If it comes out of your account, you didn't authorize that, you can dispute that item. Now, the dispute process for the consumers can take up to typically 6 weeks to be fully rectified. It's much more typical to be within 2 weeks to have that cleared up. But you want to be careful, just like on the business side, who you give a check to, who you provide your debit or credit card information to. Credit cards, most people are aware that you've got 90 days to dispute a transaction that comes from your credit card. And that dispute goes through a process to make you whole and to get those monies back. And oftentimes they'll issue you a new card number, stopping any fraud coming through that number may have been exposed to. And they can get those funds returned. On your checking account, if you have fraud on your consumer checking account, it can take a number of days to get those dollars back if fraud has been confirmed. So it's a little bit of a tougher situation when it happens to folks checking, because it feels more like it's out of their pocket. So you want to be careful not to share information, use your card and your checks at places that you're familiar with. ATM machines, gas station pumps, you always want to wiggle before you put your card in those slides and make sure that it's secure and they haven't put some type of skimming device on the top of where you put your card in. Those are oftentimes where fraud happens, are at machines where you've got the little slide and they put that skimming device on top of there. So make sure that also when you're shopping online, the sites you're accessing are secure, which are indicated by HTTPS. Pay attention to your online banking, look at your accounts, your activities, and if you see something, as they say these days, say something. And then for both businesses and consumers, be cautious. Do not open email or links from people that you do not know, or they're asking you to input information. You know, your bank is never going to email you and say, hey, we need your social security number, click here, you know, and follow this link. So you always want to be very cautious with this world that we're in today.
Okay, I have a question on credit cards. If I have a business credit card, does that fall under the same 90 days to report and all of that you mentioned for the consumer card?
Fortunately, credit cards are credit cards, whether they're business or consumer, and those all have the same type of fraud protection. So yes, use that Visa card, that American Express, MasterCard for all of those purchases that you're doing online, but still use them wisely.
Okay, we did get a question. If I require 2 signatures on a check and due to automation, the bank pays it, who is now responsible for fraud?
Again, the 2 signatures is not a bank. That's not a bank regulation. So the 2 signatures is what the business owner, that's what they want, but it's not, does not tie to any type of banking regulation. So it cannot be monitored by the bank for 2 signatures or not. So it is still the business owner's responsibility.
Okay. All right. I think that does it unless we get any more questions. I'm going to turn this back to Allie, and she'll do the wrap up. Thank you, Genevieve. Great job.
Thank you, Nancy.
Yes, thank you very much, Genevieve. That was excellent information, and Nancy for asking those thought-provoking questions. As I mentioned in the beginning, just quick reminder to be on the lookout for the survey that will be sent out along with the recording link of today's session. And that is it. So no more questions. I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Genevieve, thank you. Nancy, thank you. All of our attendees, thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you at the next one.
Okay. Thanks, Allie. Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, Allie.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.